Tim, what do you think about the Ford recalls?
You know, we started covering the recalls, but like this week, I started looking at them closer, and what they were saying is a lot of these aren't recalls as much as like emissions, compliance and customer satisfaction things that come out. There's not, I mean, there are some recalls, but it's all wanting to protect the customers, and I think they play on they'd rather put a recall out, and make sure that vehicle is good for their customers and safe for their vehicle for their customers than to wait for the government to tell them. Of course, the government will make them eventually, but Ford wants to get ahead of it and take care of it and to make it right. So, I don't know. Like this week, I was like looking for recalls for my live stream on Wednesday night, and I saw that there's only one recall, and it's just an update to recall. All the other ones that have come out are like customer satisfactions, where they're doing this and just to kind of make things better and to help customers out. But I guess that's the way I look at it is I never really am fearful if I hear a recall. I mean, I think my Bronco's got a recall on it, and I haven't gotten a letter, and I'm just like, whatever. I'll just keep driving it. And then the Lightning for the back glass, but like they're saying that if you have a lariat that on the tailgate, that it can get water, moisture can get in there, and mine has that. Mine has the moisture in there, but I don't feel like it's going to affect my backup light. So I never really think about that way, but I'm not really worried about it. I'm going to continue to drive it. So it's one of those things that I guess I don't get as concerned about those as maybe some others do. I mean, when they hear the fear of the fire and such, maybe, but
Yeah.
but most of the recalls are minor recalls that are just just a precaution, more than anything.
Yeah, and it's better to be fixed than having an issue. So the recalls
Yep.
are fine to me, I guess.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
know
we
that
had a Maverick
you
in.
the same.
We had a Maverick in today getting the airbag recall done. So they had the headliner down, and they were doing that. So and that's been out for a little while. So
Yeah, now that's a fantastic example of recalls that, whether it's the Institute for Highway Safety, the government essentially that calls the recall, or the manufacturer. If I recall my math being 11 millimeters of overinflation on an airbag, and you had YouTube channels being like, this is it for the Maverick. The Maverick's done, major safety recall, and talking as if the Maverick was a bad vehicle. And, that upset me because they're not looking at the facts. And you got to ask yourself, how does this apply to my life? How is this going to affect me? Well, I obviously can't replace Marie. I'll never do this good again. So if the Maverick truly was a dangerous vehicle, there'd be no way I'd want Marie driving the Maverick. Plus, carrying our future kid. And I'm not worried at all about the Maverick catching fire or an airbag overinflating for 11 millimeters, because at the end of the day, even if that airbag went off with an extra 11 millimeters, at a certain point, everything needs to fall into parameters, and you have to say, this is the allowed parameter. I'm not a crash test expert, but I can't imagine 11 millimeters, which is next to nothing, being the difference between life and death. It might decide whether the bruise on your nose is medium blue or a slightly darker hue of blue when the airbag goes off, but not a big issue. And Ford has a lot of, whether we want to call them recalls or service bulletins, there's lots of service bulletins just to make your ownership experience better. But some of them are, on the Bronco, there's the ease of getting your seatbelt. We saw the emissions recall go by for Super Duties recently. And like Tim says, doesn't affect him whatsoever. If you have a Super Duty and you have a recall in regards to emissions, well, you're going to go in for an oil change, and they're going to spend maybe an extra 30, 40 minutes with the vehicle. And even if it's 2 hours, let's say they have to flash the computer system and reboot a whole new program into it. Worst case scenario, you lose the vehicle for an extra hour or two. It doesn't affect your life whatsoever. And a lot of these recalls but a lot of businesses survive on this type of information. For example, Consumer Reports, they're not going to sell their subscription if their news is, hey, Dodge Ram, the Ram 1500 is now our pick, but the F-150 is still really awesome. They're not going to sell with titles like that. They sell with titles with, we recommend you don't buy an F-150. And then their reasoning for that is the handling, the ride comfort, and reliability. And reliability is based on how they calculate reliability, which is very interesting in and out of itself. But it's funny because a few years ago, they very well might have been saying that the F-150 was the number one truck to buy. But then oddly, it's like, well, the suspension hasn't changed, but now they don't like it. Oh, the ride comfort, they used to say it was, really good, but now they don't like it. So I have a lot of trouble with information that's more about making bank for your own personal wallet instead of giving good quality advice to consumers.